Younus became the director of COIL at his institution as a result of his great work in pivoting. So, yay.
Yeah, thanks so much, Hope. And Hope was actually very instrumental in that transition. I consulted with her and she gave some wonderful advice. So I have a very similar story to World Learning and from the presentations that Kristen Kala and Shadi presented, in that we were at the heart of the Shenandoah in-person exchange program. So in particular, I direct a project called the Brazindia Project that does outreach to various countries in the world, in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and the Balkans. And our project at the heart of it was this in-person exchange. We actually went to Malaysia with faculty, staff, and students. We went to Sarajevo and visited the University of Sarajevo and the landscape there, Mostar, and other neighboring cities. And we actually hosted a delegation from Malaysia and Bosnia to discuss innovation in higher education. So Hope, can you go to the next slide? So when the COVID crisis hit, we did something very similar with World Learning, is that we said we have to continue our mission and vision despite the circumstances. So even though we believe in innovation through global collaboration, we realized that this in-person exchange would no longer be possible. And Shenandoah, we have a very active and robust spring break trip. We also have global engaged learning where faculty travel to different parts of the world where there's students. So we began monthly chats. And in these Zoom chats, we would just catch up with one another and learn how everyone is doing. We learned, for instance, in Malaysia, that folks, if they go out without a mask, they can be fined up to $250, which was very different than here in the United States. And we are learned in Bosnia just recently that they're having difficulty getting the vaccines compared to some of their neighbors, such as Serbia has relationships with Russia, so they have that connection, but Bosnia feels somewhat isolated. So these Zoom chats were a great way for us to keep the exchange going in this virtual environment. So these Zoom chats were once again wonderful for us to catch up. And as we began to talk and discuss, we said, well, why don't we just continue these chats, but develop them into virtual forums? So we cannot go to Kuala Lumpur and learn about our partners' institutions and what they're doing, but why don't we organize a virtual forum and discuss some of the innovative things we're doing on our campuses? So this was one of our first virtual forums that came out of those chats, which was a global response to the COVID-19 crisis. And as you can see on the flyer, we had a representative from each of our partner institutions talking about how they responded to COVID. So for instance, in Shenandoah, we talked about how we're providing career services through Zoom. Our colleagues in Sarajevo talked about the mental health crisis that they were realizing with the students feeling isolated. Our colleagues in Malaysia talked about how they are very savvy with technology and video, so they're using these asynchronous videos a lot. And our colleagues in Bridgewater in the United States and Virginia talked about the need to educate the whole person despite the circumstances. These virtual forums were robust. We had one about every single month, and our colleagues in Malaysia eventually reached out and said, why don't we organize a virtual conference? And in this virtual conference, we can have all our partner institutions come together, and they put this conference together. And you can see here, Equality, Religious Harmony, and Peace in the fall of 2020. And what was unique was this was the first time their university had ever done a virtual conference, and the first time they had done it with international partners in Bosnia and the United States. So as we did these virtual forums, we organized a virtual conference, we said the natural next step was to do collaborative online international learning. And this is where Hope came in and the SUNY COIL network. We quickly became part of the network. We learned some of the best practices, and we continue to be part of that community. So we said, now there's this very innovative practice of faculty from different parts of the world collaborating on a particular project and then having their students work on that project as well. So we currently are going through a training process of 15 faculty from our different institutions in Malaysia, Bosnia, and United States. And next week, they'll actually be presenting their collaborative project, and we'll have a graduation ceremony where we'll present certificates to each one of them. Hopefully next year, they will actually implement their COIL projects in their classes. And lastly, we're really excited about combining COIL with virtual reality. So we have a very strong active virtual reality lab at Shenandoah University. And we are developing a COIL project as we speak through some universities in the MENA region, where students from our campus and students in their campus will work in their respective virtual reality labs to develop simulations regarding surgery. So instead of health students actually going and practicing surgery on humans, they'll actually develop virtual reality software where they can practice doing this and learn the best practices. So with that, thanks so much, Hope, once again for the invitation, and I look forward to continuing to be part of this community.
Wow, you might have to come back for the innovative ways to do COIL. That's very exciting. Thank you so much.